Hi, I'm Chip McElroy, founder of Live Oak Brewing Company in Austin, Texas, and you're watching the Beer Diaries.
Rolling fast down I-35, through the day and past the night.
Hey folks, Greg Zeschuk here with the Beer Diaries. Here with Chip McElroy. He's the head brewer and owner here at Live Oak Brewing Company in Austin, Texas. They've had a huge history making amazing beers, a lot in the German style and a few others, very pure, delicious beers. We're going to talk about it and learn what you did. So I'm drinking your Pils, which is what got it all started. I mean, you guys were, was it 96 or when did you guys start?
97.
97,
Sold our first
okay.
beer in April of 97. This is the beer that started it. We were trying to do a Czech Pilsner. At the time, there was really hardly any small breweries that were making Pilsners. Everybody was making a pale ale.
Right.
And in fact, IPAs weren't even that big.
In brewing times, that's almost ancient history. If you think back to the mid-90s and you go, wow, that like, it was still, craft beer was probably in its
it
infancy
wasn't
in
at
a
the
way.
beginning, obviously, but
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
you know, it was
early.
certainly the beginning in Austin.
Yeah.
And, well, we just, I started the brewery with Brian Peters.
Yeah.
We met at a homebrew club. We were part of the Austin Zealots, and I liked making lagers, and hardly anybody was making lagers.
Right,
and,
right.
And Brian wanted to get into lagers, and we were both into Pils, both into Hefeweizen, and we wanted to do a Czech-style Pilsner, which involved doing decoction,
Right.
mash, and you know, we were into doing the full grain and the actual duplicating the way that the Czechs brew
Right.
Pilsner. I had gone to the Czech Republic. I'd knocked on a bunch of brewery doors, talked to some brewers about how they actually make a Pilsner.
Yeah, you mentioned you're going to Germany a little bit to meet potential sourcing for equipment for malts and hops. So you're going right to the source. What's the thinking there?
Well, we're trying to duplicate these styles of
Right.
beer, and we use what they use, and so we're importing a malt made from an heirloom variety barley. It's under-modified, which I always shorthand it to people that it doesn't work very well, but it tastes really good.
So it's kind of natural, and you got to work a little harder to make it do
Yeah,
what
work
you
the
want.
mash a little bit harder, and one of the things we do is we do a decoction,
Yeah.
and that gives it a nice, gives it that nice golden
Right.
color. It's a little bit darker than most Pilsners. that
Yeah,
you
they
see.
have a little. They have a. Sometimes they're very, very just off white. They're sometimes very, very pale. But
Yeah, no, this is pretty dark. When Pilsner or Quell is about the same color, but
Right.
most any other Pilsner, and it's all very light colored malt, and
Right.
it gets that color by boiling the mash.
Right. So the decoction technique. Can you talk a little bit of what that does and really what results in the beer?
And you pull a portion of the mash, and you put it in another vessel that you can raise the temperature on, and you take that decoction portion of the mash, and you
Yeah.
take it through its temperatures, other rest, saccharification rest for sure. And once it's all turned to sugar, then you boil it, and that gives you a lot of caramelization. And you return that to the rest mash or the main mash, and that raises the temperature of the whole deal. There are historical reasons why they did that.
Right.
And with today's modern malts, it's completely unnecessary. You
Right,
can buy
right.
a modern malt and that you can just basically threaten with water, and it'll
You
turn
have a
to
little
sugar.
stick and you shake a stick
I'm
at it.
gonna sacrifice. Sacrifice? Would that be it?
I don't know, I'm not sure.
No, that wouldn't be it. Anyway, and so it's not necessary, but it has a wonderful effect of it makes a nice firm maltiness without being sweet. It's not, you know, overly thick or anything, it's got a nice firm maltiness that allows you then to, you know, hop it up.
Right.
And
it kind of gives it a bit more bit to it.
It can withstand a little bit more assertive hopping.
No, it's really tasty.
And
for sure.
It's nice and bitter, but it's got a little hop character to back it up, or a little malt character, I should say.
So changing directions totally. You have a PhD in molecular biology.
In biochemistry.
Biochemistry.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, how did so, you know, like me, I switched careers as well. Why did you not decide to pursue that? What was the reason you said, hey, you know, I'm not going to be a molecular biologist. I'm going to make beer.
I'm not sure that it
was
went that way. I mean, it was, you know, I was doing home brewing, and
like you're in San Diego. I think your postdoc was in San Diego. I think that's
I went to graduate school here at UT in Austin, and then went to San Diego, did a postdoc out there at a little pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
And it was out there. I didn't meet him out there. I met a guy out there who was a great home brewer, and learned to make lagers with him. And
so at home, how are you doing the lagers? Do you have some little fridge you put the stuff in, or how did you do the cooling
we
part
do the
of it?
fermentations in a chest freezer.
Okay, it's a little.
And so after my postdoc, then I moved back here and joined the homebrew club and met some other guys and started doing these the Texas Brewers Festival. You probably weren't around at the time.
I've only been here about 5 years.
Yeah, that was quite a long time ago. I think that was back in '92 or '93.
Wow.
Started doing those. Took that on the road, did them in Austin, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio. And so I just started doing more and more beer, and it just kind of got out of hand. And,
well, we thank you for letting it get out of hand.
Yeah,
you make such awesome beers.
Yeah, so it wasn't like a conscious decision. It was like, this seems to be working. And Brian and I had talked a lot about doing a brewery, and then it was, you know, as they say, shit or get off the pot. So
absolutely. When did you? I mean, for reference for people here, I mean, Live Oak is one of the local standards. I mean, this beer is spectacular. I mean, the Hefeweizen in particular is considered one of the best in North America. This Pils is spectacular. You guys have been around for a long time in the scene. When did you, along the way, know that you kind of made it? Like, when was there a point? Do you feel that now, or do you feel like?
Yeah, I don't know what time you got. I don't know, you know.
But was there a point that you said, like, hey, I took this risk?
It's a constant struggle.
Yeah.
We're still not in bottles or cans.
I know.
You know?
We talked about that.
How can you have made it until you have actually a profitable package out there?
But the cool thing with that, I mean, I'm not saying it's the right way to go from a business perspective, but having the exclusivity of only getting it in a fairly local area, like that's a certain cachet to that. Like, you know, that said, the business.
I mean, we did very well. Austin, I have to say, Austin got it from the outset.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It's a great city to be doing this in because. Very open, you know, a little bit more educated crowd, and
they're willing to try stuff. I mean, they try. I mean, you were doing things again that folks hadn't done before, and yet people were adapting to it, and they were trying
right. I mean, it was difficult to sell a Pilsner because, you know, most craft beer drinkers. In fact, it wasn't even called craft beer back then, you know,
beer,
or whatever. It was micro brewed beer or that.
Microbreweries.
They had homebrew stuff, you know, even though it wasn't homebrew. People didn't really like Pilsners. They liked pale ale, you know, and they were, I gave up on Pilsners when I was in high school or whatever.
I think they learned the wrong way, didn't they? I think the reality. I mean, you know, again, on this show we don't like launch any kind of big tirades against large beer, but the reality is we talk a little bit about the fact that, you know, I think that the larger beer companies are more a marketing company than a product company. They're not about creating the best possible product or beer. They're worried about marketing it well. And guys like yourself,
Certainly.
Your angle, which is so important and the consumers love, is you make the best possible thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's got everything that a craft beer drinker wants.
Right.
They just don't know it yet.
Well,
they do now.
Yeah, it's the artisanal craft that goes into it. It's
it tastes good. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's delicious, natural.
I mean, you put it in your mouth, it tastes good, and that's what we've always been trying to do.
Yeah.
We're not trying to, you know, come up with some ingredient that that nobody's ever heard of, and
Right.
and see if that'll go in
Yeah,
beer.
you guys are doing some I mean, you guys stay. I wouldn't say like straight on the guidelines per se, but you stick to styles that are known but do a damn good job on them. I mean, among the best in the world.
Thank you very much. Well, that's
My favorite beer. I mean, the Hef is one of my favorites, but I'll call it Primus because that's the proper way to say it. But those of us that are rock and roll fans know the band Primus.
Yeah.
Not Primus. Primus, spelled the same.
Yeah, Primus. So it's a Weizenbock, and it was actually the Weizenbock was going to be our very first seasonal. We thought, well, that sounds great. Let's do that. And then we thought about it a little longer. And at the time, we had a hard time even giving away the Hefeweizen, and we were like, well, that's probably not going to work. It's a little too weird.
They'll be like, whoa, what's this?
But
Yeah.
when we made it, I don't know, it's been 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. Who likes the Primus?
Yeah.
All right, we switched beers here. Cheers.
Cheers.
And it's always the bottom, especially with the Hefe.
Yeah,
It's always the bottom. That's where it's strong. You bang it on the top, not so good.
Shatter. So
Anyway.
through the magic of television or internet or whatever we're on, we switched beers. Personally poured by the brewmaster himself, the Hefeweizen stunning beer. I wanted to ask comment one more thing about the Primus though.
Okay.
You guys got a World Beer Cup silver medal.
Silver medal,
But
surrounded by Germans.
And they
we
must
love
have-
that.
Yeah, they were
That's
like,
what I
"Arr."
love about the World Beer Cup.
What-
You know, there's international brewers.
What did they like? What was it like? Were they enthusiastic for you, or how did
Well,
they?
it was at the Craft Brewers Conference
Yeah.
is where all this takes place. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
I mean, they're
I
kinda
mean,
your
but
colleagues and
being
stuff,
over
right?
I go over to Germany quite a bit. Once a year now, but I've been over there many other times. First time in 1980, and I fell in love with the country then.
Yeah, it's a great place.
And I've been to the Czech Republic a few times, and the brewers have always been very open, and I think they understand. I mean, for the most part, not all breweries, especially the big,
Yeah, the
really
big guys.
big guys. They're a little more hush hush and stuff. But
Yeah.
but everybody kind of knows, a recipe for a Pils or a Hefeweizen. I mean, they're all kind of the same. It's just whether you execute it right.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they're not exactly the same, but
Yeah.
and everybody's been very open about how to brew beer. And
Yeah, without a doubt. And so, from the Primus to the Hefeweizen, which is kind of like maybe in a sense like the little half brother, makes it's the vice part.
It's the regular brother, you
yeah,
know.
the regular brother, not the super
It's the everyday
powered.
brother, not the super big guy.
Yeah. So this was a second beer you did, is that correct?
Second beer.
And so what happened was the Pils kind of making a good impact, and now the Hefeweizen, you thought we're gonna stick with this.
Well,
kind
we
of,
liked it. I mean,
Again,
that was
again,
kind
it's
of what
the
we do.
flavor.
It's like, it tastes really good, so let's make that beer.
Well, this is a beer when folks come to Austin. I have a lot of friends visiting, a lot of people I know here. They'll say, hey, I like lighter beers. We're outside, it's warm. I go,
It's hot.
Yeah.
Let's not sugarcoat it.
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
Yeah.
I go, I got the beer for you. And this beer is, it's super, super, super balanced. It's banana and clove. It is, effervescent. It is a bit like that slight bit of tartness. It's just such a delicious
That's
hef.
great beer.
Yeah, it is a great beer. And I think in some ways, I mean, was this a beer that you think was one of the gateway beers for the Austin scene? Was this a beer that people started having? Because it's on tap
the
everywhere.
Pils was. The Pils.
think the Pils was,
This
okay.
was hard to sell at the
And then
very
back in the
beginning.
day, yeah.
People were familiar with some other beers that go by the name of Hefeweizen, but that were more of an American wheat ale.
Like the filter types, like those American wheat
No,
systems.
the American wheat ale that sometimes they call them Hefeweizen, but
Okay.
they're
Yeah, there's one of those back up in Canada we had called Grasshopper, a place called Big Rocks. Nothing like this. It was a good beer.
well,
it's
but they
like-
don't call it Hefeweizen. They call it Grasshopper.
That was a wheat ale, they called it. So,
Yeah,
so-
well,
That's fair.
I'm getting
no,
getting
no.
on my soapbox because
that's what we're here for. We're here
yeah,
for
you
providing
want my
us.
soapbox?
No, just a little bit of soapbox.
well, I just think that when you make if you make an American style wheat beer or
Yeah.
North American, sorry, I don't mean to be chauvinistic, American.
Well, the Canadians, we're
I know you're so nice.
we're not offended by that.
I just think if you make an an American wheat beer,
Yeah.
but you call it Hefeweizen,
You're mislabeling it, aren't you?
I think so.
Yeah,
And if you had a restaurant and you had sauerkraut on the menu,
Yeah.
and you brought everybody out coleslaw,
Yeah.
I mean, what would they think? There's nothing wrong with coleslaw. Coleslaw is delicious.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have it all the time. We have it with barbecue a lot.
Yeah.
We also have sauerkraut.
And Hefeweizen.
We also have sauerkraut. But my point is, they may both be 95% cabbage.
Yeah.
But they're completely different.
Right.
So why would you call your coleslaw sauerkraut? It's a German word, it has a specific meaning.
Right.
Same with Hefeweizen.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment for sure.
All right, I get off my soapbox.
Nah, well,
We might find another one
yeah,
though.
yeah.
I got plenty of soapboxes.
So with regard to the business itself for you, I think one of the things you mentioned was we were chatting a bit earlier about, like, for example, the need for a bottling line and trying to get a little more reach. I mean, where are you guys right now? Like, how far afield do your kegs get to right now? Like, how far within Texas?
We a little bit up in Dallas and Fort Worth, and a little bit over in Houston, a little bit down in San Antonio. But I think about still 85-90% of our beer is sold in Austin, right around Austin.
Right. And if you were in bottles, how would that be different? What do you think that might look like for you? Like, you can send them practically. You can send them to Canada.
Bottles.
Canada, for example, we could drink.
Just wave goodbye to them. I don't have to wait anxiously for that keg to come back home.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah.
And
a lot of
especially in
business
Texas, 95% of beer is sold in bottles or cans.
Got it.
So we're working on what is craft beer. You know, it's like 5% of the market.
Well, there's inherent challenges to that, aren't there?
So yeah, you know, it'd be nice to be in bottles or so. But we've kind of always we're in this small place. We got 8,000 square feet, and
it's amazing when you pack
oddly shaped.
It's amazing when you pack in here, because I mean, when we first came to visit you, like earlier in the week, we kind of walked in the side, and it was very unclear where to go. We kind of started wandering a little bit.
We're unclear about where to go.
And then a gentleman with a beard much larger than mine, and apologies for the folks on TV, I got it trimmed today, the guy went a little wild. But you know, he kind of said, "Oh, he's over here," and kind of took us back to your office up front. But it's pretty neat. Like it's kind of labyrinthian, but it's got a real, I honestly think it's got a real kind of character to it.
Oh, it's got plenty of character. We could do with more space and less character, though.
You wouldn't want like a pristine kind of like, you know, stainless steel walls place.
Pristine's not so bad either, you know.
All right.
It's a little easier to keep things clean in pristine.
No, that's true.
But
that's actually a good point.
We've always, I mean, so we've had this space and we've had junk in it. We've kind of always had just enough vessels to make our beer, and then we'd have, you know, save our pennies, and then we buy another one, and then we can make more beer. So we've always been bumping our heads on our ceiling of capacity. The point about bottles is that even if you could snap your fingers right now and a bottling line magically appears here, and all the bottles and the labels and everything is just magically here, we can't make enough beer to put in the bottling line.
Right. So in terms of the Austin market, do you find that you believe that the capacity is there's still the capacity there to sell even more, you think? Or
oh my gosh, it's fantastic. We're growing it. We're pumping the brakes, and yet we're growing it. Well, we'll end up somewhere between 25 and 30% growth this year.
Wow.
Pumping the brakes.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
we're not
astonishing.
selling as much as we can.
Wow.
We're not pushing that hard.
Well, then outside Austin, you go, well, imagine if you could easily get into San Antonio and Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth. Like.
And what we found is that with all the new breweries in town, it just seems like craft beer's share of the market just keeps getting bigger.
I totally agree. Yeah.
For years we were all, you know, well, there's only a few of us, but
yeah, there's just a few. Like, I mean, is you Independence 512 about 5 years ago? Is that? And then there was
I think Independence is about 8 years old, and
then maybe
512 is about 4 years old.
Yeah. But it was a really small number of people.
North by Northwest is a brew pub,
yeah, exactly.
So that one doesn't count. Oh, sorry, Davis.
But then the market went like.
We just have this strict wall between pubs and
we'll get into
producers.
Let's get into some of that. For example, like one challenge you have is I don't think you can do growler fills here, for example. Like you couldn't show up with your growler and buy it. You can't buy
Sure
it.
you can, and we can give it away all day.
Oh, you can give it
Not
away.
much of a business model, but
No, that's
we can give away beer, certainly.
Yeah.
But no, we can't sell growlers. We can't sell to the ultimate consumer.
Right. So in other words, there has to be that interspersing bodies to sell for you or be your agents or whatever.
Well, we're a manufacturer, and all through the United States, we have the three-tiered system,
Yeah.
which breaks it down into manufacturers, distributors, and retailers.
Right.
And you can't be two of those things, and there are certain exceptions.
There's sort of some of the states. I mean, I think one of the things that's been a common theme about talking to folks is they'd like to see some of the laws actually change, though, to provide a little more flexibility. Like, what would you like to see from a legal
certainly,
perspective?
we'd like to be able to sell beer to the ultimate consumer. I'd like to be able to have people buy pitchers and pints and
Walk in and have a little brew house and
and
tap room.
have some sauerkraut or coleslaw.
Which is the best beer with sauerkraut? Of course, the
or Pils pretty good too.
Yeah. But so is that do you find that the laws are impeding your ability to grow?
Oh,
a little
absolutely.
bit? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a detriment to the state of Texas because we've got all of these beers coming in from out of state.
Oh yeah.
They're propped up by their ability to sell beers retail and make $4 a pint instead of $1 a pint.
Right.
And it's helped them grow. It's helped them market and helped them to bring their products to Texas. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we would like that same opportunity too. And it's our own state legislature that's holding us back. Well, it's not really the legislature. It's other powers that don't want us to do that for whatever.
They may have influence in the legislature. For
Absolutely,
example.
and it's just silly that our own state legislature and other business people in the state of Texas are holding us back.
Yeah.
I mean, as people, we're raising our
Well,
hands to pay some tax.
Yeah, pro-business administration that wants to support
it's
small business.
pro-growth.
Right.
It's pro-jobs.
Well, yeah.
It's raising revenue without raising taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. No, I totally.
These are things that everybody in the state of Texas is supposed to be for.
Right. And yet there's these arbitrary impediments, or maybe not arbitrary, but sort of
they're
devious.
ancient impediments.
Yes.
And times have changed.
Yeah.
And it's time for us to catch up to the times.
Other states have a much better it's not even playing field, like
It's
Colorado, Maryland.
Greg Cook at Stone Brewing. There was a convention of legislators out in San Diego, and I went out there and hired a bus and took some up to Stone, and I said, look, here's what we could do. And Greg came out and spoke to him for a little bit.
Right,
One of the things he said is please, whatever you do, don't change the laws in Texas because it's really helping me in my competition against Chip's brewery.
Yeah.
As long as you keep those laws like they are, Chip can't compete on equal footing. And
California beats Texas. They love that, right?
Stone beats Live Oak once again. So obviously that was tongue in cheek, and appreciate.
It's actually, frankly, it's well thought out because that's the real core of the argument, isn't it?
Well, it's so plain. It's so clear, and so we have people in the legislature now who are working to change those laws.
So we've been tantalizing people by drinking delicious beers. So we should probably talk about them. I think we had the Pils initially, we're on the Hefeweizen.
It has changed a little bit over the years. What we're trying to do with it now, and I owe a lot to a German brewery, Schneider, for their input into our beer.
Really? So Schneider helped you on it. What did the guys tried it out and said, hey, you should do a little bit of this or a little bit of that? Or?
Back about 98 maybe, or 99, Georg Schneider the fifth, I believe.
Wow.
Came to town. He was invited and brought here by by St. Patrick's of Austin, Homebrew Supply. I'm not exactly sure what they had him do. They had Michael Jackson come here a couple of times.
Wow.
Anyway, but they brought him by the brewery and we tasted beers, and he was so nice and frank and really liked our beers, but really the one we wanted to ask him about was the Hefeweizen.
Yeah, they're very famous for that.
And so how's the Hefe? And he said, well, it's too bitter. We're like, he's right. It's too bitter.
Really?
And
I think technically it's a very, very, almost no hop character. I
oh
think,
yeah,
to this.
just threaten it with some hops, and that's
Yeah.
about all you need.
One leaf and then.
You know, a little bit keeps it more sanitary, and
Yeah.
bacteriostatic effect, but yeah, not very much in it. And so even way back then, we cut back on the bitterness, and
Right.
and it was obviously a lot better.
Right. No, it's an absolutely delicious beer, like I said earlier.
The problem back then was that it didn't. I mean, it doesn't really taste like beer. What everybody expects that beer is going to taste
everyone's
like.
programmed into like a very narrow consideration of beer, adjunct filled, kind
Yeah.
of like super light lagers.
Yeah.
Right? So after the Hef, what was the next
Third beer, the Big Bark.
It's a Vienna lager, right? Like what's the
Right.
style?
So we call it a Vienna lager. That's what we're shooting for. And it was a huge hit. Did very, very well.
And that's year round now, I think, the Big Bark.
Oh
is
yeah,
year-round.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The Big Bark is year round.
And
The Oktoberfest is just seasonal for the season.
The Rogen beer is a summer, which means rye beer in German, right?
Right.
Rogen
That's
beer.
our summer beer.
So is it it's a spicier? It's almost like they almost say like it's mainly rye, but there's some wheat as well as barley in there.
There's when you add them up, there's about 50% wheat and rye. I think it's actually about 30% rye. It's not 50, and about 10% wheat, something like that.
Smaller. Yeah.
Rye is just so gummy. It's
Yeah,
very
so in the
difficult to
actual
work with.
mash,
But
doesn't
it
come
is
through.
a very high amount of rye, and so again, we're trying to duplicate these styles of Central Europe, Germany in this case, and a rye beer over there it can be several things. Sometimes they use like a Hefeweizen yeast,
Yeah.
this weird banana and clove deal. Sometimes they use lager yeast. Sometimes they use a German ale yeast or a Kolsch yeast or an
Yeah.
alt yeast.
So lots of different characters will come from those yeasts for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, it can be a lot of different things. So we didn't want to just duplicate the Hefeweizen. We didn't want to have another lager. So we used a German ale yeast, gives it a touch of fruitiness, just a hint of fruitiness, because really the German ales are never very ale-y. Very little hop bitterness.
Right.
A lot of people are making these really hoppy rye beers, and
Yeah, rye IPAs are common. As
right,
example.
right. And it's my opinion, why use this horribly difficult grain to brew with
Right.
if you're not going to taste it?
Right.
It's also not very hoppy, which is kind of nice in the summertime. It's
Right.
another light beer. I mean, we have a lot of summer here in Austin, but
Still summer out
But in
there.
the summer, it's extra summery.
Yes, yeah, without a
So
doubt.
it's a nice beer to
Right.
have in the hot weather.
Right. And you do have one IPA now though. Like you had an old IPA, but you have a new IPA now.
No, we
way back.
Okay, so the Liberation
Yeah,
Ale.
Liberation,
We had a pale ale for a while. And we thought, well, let's do an IPA, and that was before we we were going to do an IPA for a winter seasonal, and it went so well. It was one of those things. It went so well that we just kept it year round. But originally, it was a winter seasonal,
Right.
and it was a typical American style IPA.
Right.
Hops over the top. And we were using Cascade hops. In fact,
So very classic American style.
If you can put it that way. I guess they're getting to be classic now.
Yeah, now 4 years later they're
But
classical.
we, in our test batches, we tried various dry hoppings, and we tried Ultra. I think we tried some Goldings, and we all agreed that we liked the Cascade best, but we didn't want to make it a cliche, so we dry hopped it with Ultra.
Okay.
And Ultra and Cascade.
Right.
And then the next year around, we went, oh, screw it. We really like the Cascade the best, and so we
made that.
dry hop it with Cascade. So that went on for years, very popular, had a great following.
Right.
And then the hop crisis of '07 hit, and couldn't get Cascade. Well, everybody else in the world just kept making the beers that they always made, or they kept them the same names or whatever, same identity, but they used different hops. So we're going to use a different hop, so let's change the name of it. And we called it IPA.
Right.
And it was great. We changed the yeast that we use. We found a way to make Columbus hops really citrusy, and it was a fantastic beer, but it wasn't Liberation, and so people lost their interest, you know. And
people get very attached to the
they
beers,
do.
don't they? They go, I'm
They
here for my
do.
Liberation. They're like, well, actually, we have this IPA. And
And I think we
remember
could have kept on with.
I remember when you guys did that too. I remember seeing your IPA on, and it was a little different.
I think we could have just kept on if we'd have just remained quiet and said, oh.
You guys are honest to a fault.
We were honest, and it was to our own detriment. And so we didn't do it for a couple of years, and then we brought it back, and now it's back again, and everybody loves it, and so we're going good.
So we've been on the beers a long time,
Yeah.
which is always really fun. This is one of my favorite parts of the show because we try the beers and drink them. I declare a favorite, and it definitely is the Hefeweizen from Live Oak. It's a spectacular, like I said, one of the best in the world.
You've only had two today.
I've had other ones many other times. The Primus is close to my heart, and it's not so much of what I've had today, but just generally I've sampled all your stuff, and spectacular. But the Primus is awesome as well. But it's cool to hear from someone like yourself who's been here in Austin doing this for more than just a few years. You've been doing it for, I'm trying to use math, so like 15 years?
Yeah,
15.
This spring it'll be 16.
Yeah, so I've used math while drinking beer, which is a level up.
Very impressive.
It's been really great, and I mean, it was an honor. I mean, like I said, honestly, an absolute honor to meet you. Everyone talks very highly of you in the community, so it's been
people that don't know me.
You're a mythical figure. No, it's been really, really fabulous, and this has been a fun interview. And cheers! Well, I learned this trick. And we also.
On the bottom.
What's the German cheers?
Prost. Oder zum
Prost.
Yeah.
Skål. Na zdrowie is what I usually use. But
there you go. That's Russian, right?
You Russian Ukrainian, somewhere in there.
All right.
All right. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on the Beer Diaries at Live Oak Brewing Company.